how do you ask for help when it comes to dealing with addiction? Because you wouldn't be able to do that by yourself. You need an outside influence to help you prevent addiction.
Hello, 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 hello. That's a really, really, really tough question. Maybe we can play with it a little, see where it goes. How do you deal with, sorry, how do you, what?
How do you ask for help, I guess?
Okay. So there are a couple of things, asking help and addiction. Okay. Asking help and addiction. Okay. Once in a while I get emails from students saying that I looked at my score, it's a 70. Can I come up and ask you some questions about what I need to do to get a better score? I usually delete the emails, but sometimes I'm in a good mood, I say, sure, come on up. And you realize that when they ask for something, they want an easy way out. They're not really there to understand the nuts and bolts of how to think well, how to write, how to go back and edit your writing, how to inject emotions and intellect, how to understand the history behind, the stuff that you want to write about. And so after maybe a couple of seconds of having them in the office, you kind of realize that they smelled really, really bad, that their question is not so sincere, that in as much as you want to help them, they're not really asking for that kind of a help. They just want a quick way out. They can get an A or a B so they can leave. And so you come to realize that maybe having them in the office is not really worth your time. And maybe even listening to their question is not worth your time. So you kind of just, listen to them for a few minutes and you kind of pat them on the back and you say, okay, just go away. I'll see what I can do. So I guess like anything else in life, asking goes through all these different stages of intensity. Hello. Sometimes you just go to the doctor just for a routine checkup. Sometimes you go there because you just feel as if you have a cavity. Sometimes you go to the dentist because the cavity is hitting the nerve and it's robbing you of sleep, of rest, of just having fun with life, And so you realize 3 people can go into the dentist shop all with the same question, how's my tooth looking? But the intensity behind the question is different. And the more problematic a tooth is, the more time the dentist has to spend with the patient. The less problematic, you just take an x-ray, you look at the patient, you say, everything's fine, go away. So it depends where exactly you are in that stage of asking. Are you asking because you're curious? Are you asking because you're just merely interested? Are you asking because it's kind of like you have like a relationship with a problem? Unlike any other relationship, it could be a one-night stand, it could be 2 weeks long, it could be a lifelong process, okay? I mean, ever since I had my triple bypass, almost a year ago, every time I go to like some shop and there's a croissant looking at me, winking at me and telling me, eat me, eat me, the only thing that I can look at is really just like a pound of butter in a tiny bit of a croissant. And I realize even though something about me says, ask to see how much butter there is, I just pass it by. I say no. Because the truth is, I don't want to get sick again. I mean, I don't mind dying. Death is not a problem. Slow death with a good amount of pain, that becomes problematic. You know. So it usually takes a while, first of all, for people to really understand what exactly it is they're asking. You know, I would rather have someone come to my office and say, listen, I don't care for you. I don't care for your class. I don't care for the subjects that we talk about in class every single day. I really just want to see. Just tell me how to write an essay to get a C. I don't want to understand. I don't care about this stuff. I just want to pass the class. You know, so at least I know how to respond to you. So I don't waste energy. You know, it's like when you and your companion are at different levels, you just want to sleep with her, but she wants to marry you. And all you really want is you just have sex with her and then go home. And all she wants is to have sex with you in hopes of getting married. So she's so much invested and she doesn't really know what the hell is happening. You know, because you keep delaying your response to her. Am I going to marry you? Maybe, maybe not. I don't really know. You know. And so, because for the most part, people don't really know what it is that they want, and they have all these wrong assumptions about themselves, not only do they get themselves in trouble, but they also get the person on the other side into a good amount of difficulty. That's the first thing about asking. And I think you should always go back to one of the Gospels that says, ask, and you shall receive, knock, and the door shall be opened unto you. But I think those statements in the New Testament are incomplete. I mean, how many of us in this class have gone out on like 50,000 dates? We keep going out on dates because there is something that we want in our companion. We just don't know what exactly it is. And when we assume that we have found it, time will reveal it was the wrong things that we're looking for. So you keep waiting and you keep knocking and you keep dating and you keep talking and spending money. Then you're 80. Then you say, you know what? I want a companion who has a car, who can drive me to Kaiser. For the first time, after like 60 years, you know how to ask the right questions. But it takes a long time. Okay? Now, sometimes you ask for help. Now, help comes in a variety of different shapes and forms. In many cases, we only enjoy the sort of help that is abstract. We like people like Oprah Winfrey. We like Dr. Phil because they're not really so much hands-on. You know, how do I save my marriage? Well, read a book. Well, that's great. How do I overcome my addiction to alcohol? Well, fine, go to AA meetings. That's really good. So there is a sort of advice that goes with asking for help, recovery, so to speak. And you realize you like it because it's just so far away removed from you. You know, and you try to kind of apply the advice to your own life, but because you don't really understand it and because no one's really pushing it down your throat to make it really applicable, after a couple of days or weeks you realize, well, you know, exercise compassion, be mindful, you know, and random act of kindness and those things that you find in bumper stickers as you're driving the highway, they're really good. But you can't do it consistently. Now, so that's one of the things you need to understand about whenever someone asks you for help. Are they looking for advice? Are they looking for advice that comes down and becomes applicable? No one really desires for something to come down and become applicable. Every person wants to do things from far away. How do I mend my relationship with my dad? Well, first you have like 20 years of history inside you filled with anger. That's the first thing. And then your father betrayed you, disappointed you, all that stuff. Then you have to look at him. And then every time you're around him, all these emotions come up. You have to make sure that you kind of just push the emotions down so they don't leak out to make a mess of things even more. And then you have to do this over and over and over and over again. Then one day after 20 years, you look at your dad and say, you know what? I understand now. You know, and the problem is whenever you make a mistake, in other words, whenever you want to apply a piece of advice and you realize you failed, you need someone next to you who can slap you really hard, either intellectually or emotionally or physically. So you can become aware that, you ask for this because you want to mend your relationship. And it's tough and it's complex. Don't whine like a little baby. So it takes time for you to ask, first of all, then apply the advice that's given to you. If you come to my office and you say, I want to write a really, really good essay, I say, okay, well, the essay is about Plato's allegory of the cave. Before you can even write an essay on that, well, why don't you read how it feels to have a teacher that you love, how it feels to have a teacher that you lose, how it just feels to love, to be invested. How does it feel for this teacher to be like 99% of who or what he or she is inside you? And then all of a sudden they're there no more. How does it feel for that? And he said, well, listen, I just want to do, Plato's cave. I said, well, you can't do Plato's cave unless you understand all these prerequisites. The next problem is addiction. You're not going to become addicted. There are some drugs out there, like cocaine. You just need to look at it and you'll be addicted for the rest of your life. Okay? But most of the addictions that you and I have, they take place gradually. It's like a tiny little snowball that you have, and then you roll it down the hill, and 10 minutes later you realize it's a giant of a ball. Okay? It's too heavy, you can't really do much about it, and it's frozen. Hello. So most of the addictions that happen to us gradually. So if I was to, for example, talk about alcohol, I would say the following. You and I are in a relationship. I thought I knew what relationships are all about. I come to realize I don't. Things are complicated, they're layered with complexities, and I don't have the tools to fix our relationship. So what I usually do is to kind of get rid of all the toxic, negative emotions that live inside me. I say, you know what, maybe I should drink. I remember my father drank a little, my brother drank a little, my friends drink a little, maybe I should do the same thing. So I go to the bar and I drink. It's nice. There are people there loud, the music is loud. I get kind of lost in the physical space of the bar. It's dark, everybody's like crazy and smelly, And I come out and I puke a little. It's my first time. I said, man, this was awful. While I was there, it was good, but now it's bad. But one of the nice things about puking afterwards is that you forget. You forget the pain of throwing up. And then I come home and you and I get into a wrestling match again. I realize things are not going too well. I can't read books. I don't listen to audios. I don't have very many friends who are insightful. They're kind of losers very much like me. So I take my sorry behind to another bar again. So I do this over and over and over again. It becomes part of my daily routine. I go to work, I come home. Once in a while we have a good time. Most often you and I have an awful time together. And some people go to church, some people go to the boxing ring, I go to the bar. Okay. And what I come to realize is that what alcohol does for me is that it helps me forget. I don't think, I don't reflect. Is it true that sometimes when you drink, it can open certain portals or certain doors and emotions pour out and you scream and you cry? Sure, but for the most part, it helps me forget. And I like forgetting, because when you are in the presence of something you don't like, it forces you to find a way out, to figure out what you need to do with it. It's like the last day of this class, you've looked at your grades. First, you haven't been here very often. Second, your assignments suck. It's all zeros. And now you say, what the hell do I need to do? Yeah. And so whenever you're confronted with things that you don't really want to see, and whenever you see, you begin to feel, and you don't want to see or feel, you say, you know what? It's not just my problem. It's not just my relationship that's problematic. It's my job that's problematic. It's my parents that's problematic. It's me that's problematic. Everything about my life is problematic. And you realize that you just don't drink because your relationship with me is bad. You drink because every relationship you have with every aspect of life is bad. At least 90% of it. So you just drink. And that becomes eventually your daily routine. And when you continue doing this, it becomes a habit. By the time it gets to habit, it means that you have done something over and over and over and over again for like 5, 10, 15, 20 months or years. And now you have this tiny little seed something about you after 5, 10 years revolts and says, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to recover. Now, any revolution, it doesn't really matter what it is. A revolution means you see something, whether it's a political revolution, a social revolution, or a revolution against your own addiction. Something about you rises up and says, I don't like this regime. I don't like this social environment. I don't like this political environment where every day I go to the bar and I drink. I want to rise up and fight. And what happens is all of your emotions come together, all of your mental prowess comes together and says, you know what? Let's find a way to combat my addiction to alcohol or to drugs or to porn, whatever it may be. Okay. Now remember, some addictions are really, 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 really good. It's good to read Noam Chomsky. It's good to read Karl Marx. It's good to read ideas that have to do with social and political spheres of life because it makes you more aware. It's good to listen to Bernie Sanders. You know, those addictions kind of help you grow and mature intellectually. It's good to think about death, even though it's problematic. You may come to the conclusion that yes, time is short and you want to kind of inject in time a good amount of meaning. You just don't know what there is out there that contains meaning. And now you're not so much in quest of finding God, the truth, something that has meaning, that you can kind of look yourself at 10 at night and say, you know what, I spent my day relatively well. So whenever you rise up to fight an addiction, you need to understand you're like a tiny little piece of this puzzle. And addiction is this huge piece in the puzzle. Now, for any revolt to be victorious, to win over this addiction, it needs support system. So it can grow bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, most often we're going to fail in our revolts against any addiction because addictions usually have a history and your desire to change is a tiny little seed. And for this seed for it to gain permanence, to become permanent, something that's part of your core personality now, you're going to rise up, you're going to say, today I'm not going to drink, today you will not drink. But something about your body, your physical body now, you know how sometimes psychologically you say no sugar, but your body says, give me some sugar. And even though psychologically you may say to yourself, I no longer want to drink, your body now craves it. And if the addiction has been for a long time, your body will win over your intellect and your emotions. You will find yourself in the bar again. And so what will happen once you again fail, you very much like having gone to a church, you sit somewhere and you have a great amount of shame and regret and remorse and you punish yourself. And remember, you don't need to be religious for any of this stuff to happen, okay? Anytime you have a goal and anytime you walk towards that goal only to realize you're failing, shame and guilt and repentance and remorse will come down and you will be punished by your own conscience. You don't need anyone from the outside to do that. The very fact that you have a goal for yourself, and all of us in this class have done so, in the sense that, you know, you go out with French, you go out with Germany, you go out with someone from Ireland, only you realize none of this stuff is working. And then you realize, well, it's because of the way you think about relationship, and the way you think about relationship is because of the way you think about yourself. And now you want to change all those narratives, okay? Now you're kind of going into hibernation, you won't date anyone for a while, and then you say, you know what, I think I'm ready. I want to go out there and find someone. And you go out and you realize the old habits, the old feelings, the old way of thinking about relationships, all of a sudden, like an army, they come forth and they begin to guide you. And then you kind of spend 2, 3, 4, 5 hours or days or weeks or years with this person. All of a sudden, something about it says, damn, you've made the same mistake again. And you got to do this over and over and over again until hopefully one day you'll just understand a few things and you won't repeat the same old mistakes. Now, to overcome anything, you need a support system. One of the best examples of a support system that is required if you want to make any transformation about yourself and your life is, you'll find it in Buddhism. You need a teacher at the very top whose name is the Buddha. And you don't need to think about India or Nepal or Jesus Christ. A teacher is anyone who has gone where you've been or where you are. In other words, You don't need a Jesus Christ to overcome your alcoholism. You need me. Okay, because I was an alcoholic for 40 years. I know what it means to lose things. Not just your family, your organs. I know how it feels to lose time. I know how it feels to be depressed, to be angry. I'm your teacher, okay? Now, with any person who has a good amount of insight and wisdom inside them, and remember, it doesn't really matter what craft you're talking about. If you're good at anything, okay, you need students who are ready to learn from you. The only thing a teacher of any craft can give you is their own experience. It's filled with wisdom, remorse, repentance, a lot of mistakes. That's what they're giving you. So any teacher, any branch in life, what they possess is wisdom of their own craft. Okay. Now, what they do know is that giving you wisdom is good, but your ability to understand is really, really bad. They'll keep giving you, you'll keep failing yourself and failing them. Now, you'll do a couple of things. You'll either walk away because you feel incompetent, or there is a support system. It's what we call friendship. Just in case I don't hear from you, I will call you. Matthew, what's going on? I didn't see you at the meeting today. And you say, yeah, you know, the lights have been turned off, the blinds have been shut. I haven't left the house for like 2 weeks. And then the friend comes, knocking on your door. If you don't answer, they break your window, you know, come through the window, grab you by the hair, and they'll pull you to the meeting. So what you have is the Buddha at the very top. Then you have the lessons. Then you have the wisdom. Okay. And then every teacher has his or her own unique community of students. We call it Sangha. That if you like philosophy, I'm going to tell you, don't hang out with Mackay. He's no good. Hang out with Richard. I know you don't know him. I know you don't like him. But if you like philosophy, you need to hang out with him. Why? Because he's been hanging out with me for the past 20 years. And he knows what this process is, and he knows what people go through. And it doesn't mean that the only thing that Richard will do for you, he reminds you of me. You don't have respect for Richard, but you do have respect for me. So Richard becomes an extension of me. Now, oftentimes the mistake that takes place is Richard assumes that just because I told you to go to him, that he actually needs to tell you things. He doesn't need to tell you anything. He just needs to sit next to you. He needs to be your friend. That's all he needs to do. You have nothing to offer him. Your relationship with Richard is not the way your relationship with me is. The thing you need to do is sit, read a book together, cook together, eat together, drink together, and that's it. Okay? And every time Richard comes to realize you're not calling him, and it's been like a couple days, he calls you. Now, Richard is not going to call you because he doesn't really care for you. I have to tell Richard to give you a call. So without the support system, you can't overcome any addiction. Now, here's the problem with overcoming anything that you think has impacted your life in a negative way. The practical application, the on-ground, taking online classes is easy. You can stay in your pajamas, you can wake up like 2 minutes before the class starts, and you can just do your work anytime you want it, perhaps. You know, if there are no Zoom meetings. You can just be the scumbag that you are, just turn on your laptop, do a few things, and go back to sleep. Face-to-face classes are tough. Tough first because don't come to school with your jammies. Have some self-respect. I mean, what the hell is wrong with you? People look at you. Inspire them. Look good. Wear goddamn makeup. You know? Don't have people look at you and just feel shitty because you look shitty. You owe it to like your people to smell good, to look good. Inspire them in some shape or form. Because God knows life sucks the life out of us. If there are people out there who have some good looks, well, dress well, goddammit. You know, just say, yes, beauty does exist. I can be inspired by someone's good looks. And if you even can do that basic thing, you know, So one of the problems with overcoming addiction in a very serious way is that if you look at your cell phone, you realize most of your contact list are people you drink with. Those who don't drink, they're your friends because you call them every day and you lament. They're like your church. You whine and you cry and you scream and they're willing to listen to you. Now, one of the things you need to understand about overcoming any addiction is it's not just you no longer going to the bar. You can't even hang out with the people who used to hang out with. You can't even talk to the people you used to talk with. Why? Because all those people are an extension of alcohol. All those people are an extension of problems that you haven't solved. They kind of encourage you to go back to the addiction. So what we're talking about is very much like Jesus at the age of 12 saying, you know what? I hate my people. I hate their religion. I'm just going to go off somewhere. I'm going to figure out what all of this means on my own by myself. And that's overcoming any addiction. At the end of the day, if you want to overcome anything, you have to leave your parents who have encouraged you, supported you perhaps in your drinking habits, or maybe they're just frustrated. They've just given up on you. Okay? You need to walk away from them, walk away from your cell phone, walk away from everything that's connected to your life. And you find yourself in the desert. There is nothing that can support you, nothing that can nourish you, except your teacher and his or her community. And what a teacher does, his task is to always make you feel bad. Always. Your friends make you feel good. Every time you go to a teacher or someone who's there to help you overcoming an addiction, every time you open your mouth to talk about how shitty your life is, they kind of look at you and say, shut your mouth, I don't want to hear it. And then you realize you have to kind of keep your stuff inside you. No one cares for your stories because we've all been there. We've all done that. I'm not here as a therapist. I'm here to help you recover. And these are the pieces of advice I can give you. And if you want to look at these pieces of advice as something abstract, theories way out there, I'm not interested in you. It's hands-on, man. If you've had trust issues, the only thing I can do is I can invite you to the class, I can invite you to the office, I can invite you to my house every day for the next 10 years until you say, you know what, I like Amir and I trust Amir. And you know what, I love Amir. I will do what I can. I will exploit your physical body, your intellectual body, your emotional body. Okay? And once I realize, you know what, you've overcome a good amount of your addictions to a life that goes nowhere. And at that time I say, you know what, Matthew, go your way, man. I think you can do fine. And when you go out there, you can actually find yourself a nice companion and you'll have the courage to actually fall in love. Trust people. Right now, you want to have faith and love and trust people. It's a great idea. You just can't do it because there is no foundation for it. And it doesn't mean you won't fall in love. You will. You will fall in love 1,000 times. Will they last? No. So anything that's on ground, practical, it's going to be really, 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 really tough. You know, and I always go back to some of the wisdom that history has given us. The most simple, the most superficial is the one you'll find in the 4 Gospels. You can't find anyone wiser than Jesus Christ. He's like the embodiment of everything that God is. All he wanted for his disciples is see, understand, and apply. And all they could do was to see and to feel. No understanding, but no application. And that's the difficulty of applying anything. Because you have to combat everything about you that's human. And everything about you that has historical stories or narratives. It's really, really tough. So when you read, for example, the life of Socrates, you realize, well, you know, he was very lucky to be able to find one student, Plato. And when you go down the line, you realize they get worse and worse and worse as time goes on. You know, Socrates fell in love with Diotima, and he was willing to sacrifice his life for philosophy. Plato says, you know what, I don't like to hang out with people. I'll just hang out with books. He writes. Aristotle, he says, you know what, I don't want to die the way Socrates died. I'm going to run away. And what you'll encounter in history is that as you get these watered down versions of philosophy, by the time it gets to our age, you realize they're just some crummy people like me, sit in the office, they look at the wall, they're inspired with an idea, they write it down, and it becomes a book. Does my philosophy of life have any practical application? No. Do I even understand it? Probably not. So, it's always difficult to go against history because that's what lives inside you. Addiction is history. And you're not just talking about alcohol, you're talking about your relationship with your parents, all the ways that life has betrayed you, disappointed you. So you don't really have to just learn about, what alcohol does to your system. You have to learn about what life does to you and the amount of frustration it just injects inside you. And that's a tough place to be, man. You say, I just came here to recover from alcohol. It says, no. It's not just about alcohol. Your emotions, your parents, your friendships, your temperament, understanding life. So remember, ask. It takes many years to be able to ask the right questions and to understand why you're asking those questions. Second, you have to make sure that you ask those questions from the right person because there are lots of charlatans out there. There are lots of people who want to feel good about themselves. I like to feel good about myself, so I'll create all these traps for you so you can come to my office, so you can come to my home. In that way, I can feel good about myself. So there are lots of people like me whom you need to avoid. Okay. Then the second thing you need to understand is anyone who gives you a piece of advice, a really, really proficient teacher who gives you a piece of advice, don't ever assume you're going to understand what he or she is giving you. What you will have is a good amount of feelings. They'll generate like volcanoes of feelings erupting all about you. And you won't be able to understand why you feel the way you feel. Just go with it though. Stay with that person for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. If you're lucky, you will understand. Then what will happen is you will try to apply the understanding on ground. And you realize 90% of the things you understand are just wrong, 10% of good. And that 10%, they're your messiahs. They'll carry you out. One of the things that work against you in this culture, Matthew, is because of technology, because of urbanism, because of all the advancements that we have made throughout history, especially in America, you can get things very, very fast here in America. You don't need to wait in line for 5 hours to get a gallon of milk or a pound of meat. You go to any store, there are plenty. And it has kind of rewired us that just in case you have emotional, psychological, spiritual, intellectual difficulties, there's a safe way for that. And you can find the aisle, you can find the shelf, you can pick it off the shelf, you can go home, apply it, and it's a done deal. And that's not true. Whenever you encounter anything that's human generated, human made, it's going to take you at least 5, 10 years. So be patient. In the Islamic tradition, God has 100 names. One of those names is Al-Sabr or Al-Sabir, which means the patient one. That if you want to overcome any addiction, you need to make sure you have that particular divine attribute or quality inside you. You are patient. Daniel.
How do our experiences shape our perspective on?
About 20 years ago, I had a student at Laney. She was from a country named Eritrea. It's a part in Africa. And one day she comes to me and she says, you know, my mother has made some shoro and injera. Can I bring you some? I said, what is that? It's Ethiopian food. I said, okay, I've never had Ethiopian food. Does it look okay? Yeah, it looks great and it tastes beautiful. No, fine. You know, I really wanted to say no, but I said, okay, fine, bring it over. So I look at this dish. I say, yuck. Don't tell her. I threw everything in the trash. Then I said, okay, let me just wash the container, plastic container, and give it back to her. So I keep washing this plastic container, and the oil and the color doesn't come off. I think I was at the sink for about half hour, just washing away with like acid. It's still like brown. And I just throw the container away. Experiences are like that. It depends, first of all, what you have experienced. Something I will tell you is the following. It's not so much what you experience, but how that experience is interpreted. So let me give you a couple of examples. When I was going to school in Iran, we stood outside before our classes for about half hour. Just in case you made any physical movements, the vice principal would come your way, would stand right in front of you and slap you. And you would try to hold back your tears. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And other people just kind of just giggled, you know. So it wasn't just a slap that was tough. It was also other people laughing at you. It was difficult. And I go home and I tell my mom, you know, what happened today? Why is your face red? Well, you know, I got slapped. Who slapped you? The principal. What'd you do? Well, I was supposed to like do ABCD. I did AFGH. And then your mom kicks you. What the fuck? I'm trying to tell you I'm hurt and you're hurting me some more. And then after I do some crying, she says, go to the store, you know, up the street and tell them that you're the son of Mr. Sabzavari. Grab a pound of meat and then tell them that when your father comes home, he'll pay. Okay, so I go there and this guy says, can I help you? Say, pound of meat. And all of a sudden he comes across, you know, he comes out of the booth, he looks at me and slaps me. Am I your dad? Who do you think you're talking to? I'm not your friend. I'm like 50 years older than you are. You speak to me with respect. So I go home with a pound of meat and both sides are now red. My mom says, what happened to your left side? Well, you know, I went to the store, I asked this guy for a pound of meat, and then he comes over and says, you know, I didn't talk to him respectfully, so he slapped me. And then my mom kicks me. Why you kick me? We've been like teaching you how to behave in the social environment for the past 20 years. Are you stupid? What the hell is wrong with you? Then my dad comes home. What's wrong with you? Why are you like over there moaning and groaning? Well, I got slapped by 50 people today. Why? Well, because I misbehaved. You misbehave, you son of a bitch. He kicks you too. Now here's the thing. We don't have language for abuse. It doesn't exist. There is no ESPA. You don't call the cops to come and arrest your parents. You don't have these ideas that when I turn 18, I'm going to leave my parents. What you do have is the following. You as a kid are just stupid. When you're going to learn how to talk to people respectfully, to thank them when they do something for you. And because the culture doesn't have those psychological narratives, you don't assume or categorize your mom's slap as physical abuse. It doesn't exist. Which means that trauma does not exist in us. Which means that if that trauma doesn't exist, you don't need therapy for that. You've been slapped, I've been slapped. The only difference is my culture doesn't call it physical abuse, your culture does. Which means that I don't need therapy, but you do. So a good amount of how you deal with experiences depends on how your culture categorizes them. defines them, even if they have a language for them. In this place, America, even when you walk, it's a disease that you need therapy for. Okay? Now, the moment you are born as a human being, if you're relatively healthy, you have 5 senses: your eyes, your nose, your touch, your taste, and your ears. You know what they do for you? They give you experiences. That's all they do. They don't do anything else except to give you experiences. Now, every time you experience anything, it falls into 3 categories. They're either positive, they're negative, or they're right in the middle, neutral. Positive means you like the experience. Now, you may enjoy looking at me because I'm good looking, but your ears say, you know, his voice, it's awful. Why does he scream so much? I like the way he looks. I hate the way he sounds. Okay? One man creates 2 conflicting feelings about you. Your eyes say yes, pleasure. Your ears say painful. Now, it may be that as you're listening, you like what I say. Now you have 3 problems. Your mind says beautiful. Your ear says yuck. And your eyes say mediocre. So remember, all experiences, the only thing they can do is to generate feelings. Now, whenever you have a feeling that's positive, you want it to be repeated. Abi, forgive me. I met her in 1998, I think. She was only like 12. I don't know how she felt about the class, and I don't know how she experienced the class. The only reason why she's here, even though she's not enrolled and she's got 2 master's degrees and she's about to teach, her presence in this classroom reveals one thing. When she comes here, the experience for the most part, not all the time, but for the most part, is positive, which means that she is going to continue repeating this experience. You know, she keeps coming. There is going to come a point where she's going to come to class and she's going to say, you know what, the class was okay. Then a few months after that, it wasn't really that great. And a few months after that, she'll disappear completely. Okay? Now, I'll wait till you get naked. I wasn't really being that serious. Now, in many ways, I'm not going to bring temperaments in because some temperaments take certain feelings and emotions very, very seriously, and it just becomes part of who and what they are. And it's just hardwired. Some experiences are very intense and they're fundamental and foundational. Let me give you an example. I am your dad. For the past 4 years, I've been really good to you. I haven't hit you. I haven't screamed at you, but you're now growing. I expect some things from you. Like when you're done with eating your food, take your goddamn plate to the sink. Don't throw your socks around. Don't just throw your shoes around. Okay, pick up after yourself. And I realized at the age of 4 or 5, you come home and you throw everything around. And I scream at you. That's an experience. But that tiny little experience, okay, is against 4 years of great experiences that you and I have had. You're still going to love me. You're still going to trust me. You're still going to hold my hand to go get some ice cream. Okay. Now, the flip side is this. You're like 1 year old and you scream and I slap you. Because maybe I'm writing, maybe I'm drinking, maybe I'm left alone, and there you are bothering me. And from the age 1 onwards, every time I hear you scream, I physically punish you. Which means that from that point on, you'll say, every time I scream, this guy's going to punish me. So when you come to class at the age of 25, and even though I say awful things and you want to raise your hand and scream, say, wait a minute, am I going to get punished? If so, how? He's not my father, but will he have power over me? Will he fail me in this class? And they'll silence you. Sometimes you have certain life experiences at certain age where they just stick with you. They become part of who and what you are. The other thing is age. We had a woman who used to come to the car wash. She was a librarian in Roseville. And she used to come twice a week. And there came a period where she just disappeared completely for almost a year and a half. And then all of a sudden she shows up. And we ask her, so where have you been? I was driving the highway. I crashed into someone. And it created this trauma inside me. I haven't driven for 2 years. This is the first time I'm driving now. Sometimes when things happen to you at a young age, you kind of dismiss them. They don't really have that much of an impact. When you get a little older, certain parts of you become a bit more receptive, a bit more sensitive. It impacts you more. But going back to your question, you are nothing but a collection of your experiences. That's all you are. And you get your experiences not from yourself. You're not that creative. Right now you're feeling shitty. You know why? I made you feel that. Those emotions belong to me. Every class creates its own set of emotions. You go out with Janet, she makes you feel like crap. You go out with John, he makes you feel good. Well, who are you going to go out with more? Well, John. So your relationship to the world out there is profoundly tight. Without it, you are nothing. So one of the best things you could ever do for yourself in your life, whenever you go out with someone, the first thing you say, how's your mom? How's your dad? Because if that foundation is cracked, they're not going to like you the way you want them to. It's not that they don't want to, they just don't have the capacity. That capacity has been stolen from them by life. What do you do for fun? Oh, I drink and smoke with my friends. But that also you want to avoid. Okay? So you are again nothing but a collection of experiences. Now going back to Matthew's question about addiction. If your experiences have caused addiction about you, what you need to do is place your physical body in a different physical environment that will create for you different kinds of experiences. Okay? And now what you have are two very, very conflicting and opposite set of experiences. This experience says, read the Bible. This experience says, drink. And these two experiences will begin to fight. Should the Bible experience not have a support system, it'll be trampled upon. You will continue drinking. If, on the other hand, you keep supporting and nourishing the Bible experience, it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. Now what you have are Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali in the ring. They're both equal. Okay? So the idea that I believe this, and this is my faith, and I think, no. What you should say, this is how I've been programmed. These have been my experiences, not my own generate. I didn't create any one of them. You are nothing but the product of out there. That's all you are. Not even your looks. You have all these DNAs competing as the sperms are being pulled by the egg. Yeah. Yeah.
Going back on the
So remember, if you don't like an experience, change your physical environment. It's something that parents really do well. If they realize they live in a neighborhood, drug infested, alcohol infested, violence infested, if they have the resources, they'll pack their stuff and they'll go to Mountain Boulevard, buy a house there. You physically remove yourself. Yeah, sorry.
I I was just wondering, is Lilith the emotional body?
The what?
The emotional body, like our emotional body. He talked about how Adam is like the physical body, and Eve is like this spiritual body. So is Lilith?
Oh, Lilith.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. Let me answer your question in this other way, which may have nothing to do with your question. Okay. There are lots of movies out there about magic. Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, exorcism, all those things. And they're all about the same stuff. That there are certain things about life that we don't really understand. And there are some people who have magic inside them we don't really understand. And there are people who have power over other people. We don't really understand how or why, but they do. For some strange reason, you realize you're gravitating towards Lord of the Rings. Why? Because the person who wrote that play, you like their interpretation. So when you ask about Lilith or Adam or Eve or anything under the sun, the question is, well, whose interpretation are you gravitating towards? There are tons of books out there, tons of literature that talk about this stuff, you know. And so mine is just one interpretation. It's a drop in this ocean where all these people throughout history have kind of given their own perspective about this. Okay. My perspective may be wrong, okay? But the way I see it, again, because of my own experience and background, is the following. I think Adam has to do with our life, our physical life. Rent, food, shelter, finding friends, just finding some oasis in life where after a hard day work, you can just go somewhere and have a good time for 10 minutes. Okay? So Adam has to do with your responsibilities down here. Do you have to come to class? Well, yeah, your grade depends on it. Do you like the class? No. Do you want to feel about how you feel about the class? Well, you can feel, but just in case you stop showing up to class, I will fail you. Okay? So because you know that for you to make some money, to get a job, to graduate, you need this class, you will overcome your pathetic feelings. They may be authentic, they may be honest, very true, that this class sucks, the instructor is awful, but nevertheless your future depends on it. Okay? So that's your Adam. And usually what happens in our Adamic life, if you want to call it that, is you wake up at 6, you shower, you carry your sari behind to class. And from one class, you run to the other. And then around lunchtime, your body says, give me some food, goddammit. You take your sari behind to the cafeteria, you eat some bad food, okay? You go to another class. 2 o'clock, you realize your body is just exhausted. You go home and you collapse. Alarm goes up at 4 o'clock, you go to work. Not because you enjoy the work, it's as bad as the classroom, okay? You make some money. Then you come home at 11. And you take a shower, and while you're in the shower, all of a sudden you say, how did my day go? You say, man, I did nothing today. Okay. So that's the life of the Adam, your physical body and its responsibilities to its own self. Okay. Then there is Eve. Eve happens to be this other part of you that says, you know, time is short. It's a question that she asks all the time. If death can come at any time, well, you know, what do you want to do with your life? Do you really just want to take crummy classes with crummy instructors? Do you really want to continue working at this particular place that sucks your soul out of you every single day? Do you really want to just hang out with your loser friends? And something about it just rebels and revolts and becomes really angry. Now, it doesn't mean that you can do anything about it, but this part of you says, give me some life, man. You know, write this essay, but inject some juice in it. Now, it doesn't mean that you know how to. It just means you're desperate for some creativity, some moments of inspiration and excitement. That doesn't have to do anything with your physical body and physical life. Okay? Now, should Eve gain a good amount of force inside you, should every day you come to class with a great amount of resentment, and it becomes a habit for you, you become addicted to waking up angry, going to work angrily, coming to class angrily, asking your questions angrily, it's because something about you says, you know what? I hate what life is doing to me. And I hate what life is doing to my time, to my energy, to my life, to my youth. And as Eve grows bigger, you realize life is the obstacle in front of you. Now you fall into Lilith, darkness, confusion, frustration, irritation. What do I need to do to have an authentic life, to have a creative life? And now, for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, now remember, if you want to go into the world of Lilith and Eve, make sure you have a teacher. I don't know if you've ever been to like Burning Man or Burning Woman or just burning everybody. You know, you realize that people have a sucky life for like 350 days, right? And they go to this like ridiculous festival or ceremony. Everything about it is bad. Everything is. And they have this loud music and people just come out there like hippies and just dance. And you should watch the way they behave. I mean, you sometimes sit back and you say, really? We had Jesus Christ and Malcolm X and Angela Davis and Cornel West and Mohammeds and the Buddhas, and this is the conclusion. Some fucked up human beings in the middle of the desert dancing naked as if it means anything. Okay? So make sure, just in case you come to realize that life is no good and you want to kind of breathe life into life, that you find someone who can teach you how to breathe well. All right? Don't do it on your own. You're going to waste more time. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, can you talk a little bit about like 12 steps and stuff?
I don't know what they are, because
You mean like AA? Is that?
Yeah.
I won't talk about the 12 steps first because I don't really know. I don't drink. I've never drank. So, but I know what it means to be addicted. And my addiction has to do with books and thinking and writing. That's all the addiction that I know. You had asked a question about grief or loss some time ago, to some extent related to Wolf's question about death. So I'll give you like a idiot's version or cliff note in the few minutes that we have. So since you're talking about, I can't do it in 2 minutes. I apologize.
That's okay.
Yeah, that clock's off.
Oh, we have 10 minutes?
Yeah, that clock's been off by a lot.
It's 10:36.
Okay, we have 20 minutes then. Now, since I don't like to do anything casually, I have no choice but to give you a little history first. Is that okay?
Yeah.
The first thing you need to understand is life is tough. I mean, it really, really is tough. People have kids without knowing why they have kids. All they know is that they look at someone, they like him, they have sex with them, and all of a sudden, things happen. Here you are. Okay? And you love your kids. You want to do good by your kids, but you realize you just can't do it. You just don't have the capacity. Life is too tough. You know, you work like 10 hours, you come home, and your wife is there, nagging perhaps, because life for her is also tough. You hate your job. You don't make enough money. You live in, say, some parts of Oakland that you don't really like. You don't like public education. You want to send your kids to a private school and you realize you can't really afford private school. And so there are lots of things you need to consider. Okay? Now, there are some people who experiment with drugs and get hooked on drugs, but there are tons of people who go towards alcohol and drugs because life is complicated. They don't have the proper tools to deal with the complications, so they fall into this trap. And they don't do it because they're stupid. They do it because drugs and alcohol and any other form of addiction creates for them escape from the miseries of life. Okay? I had a student some years ago. He had started watching pornography at the age of, I think, 11. And he was going to San Francisco State. He was a student Laney for a while, but he was now 24. One day he comes to my office and just starts crying. What's wrong with you? I like this girl. Okay. I want to ask her out. Okay. What's the problem? I just see porn in her. She's just like a porn thing. I want to have like a bona fide, serious, deep relationship with her. I just realized my addiction won't let me. Now, why does he go to porn? Well, you're young. You want to experiment this thing called sex. You're not the best attractive chap out there. You're also shy. You're also reserved. It's difficult for you to go to someone and say, would you like to go out with me? You don't even know how to approach someone with this particular desire. So what do? Well, you masturbate. Then one of the ways that you can help yourself get to a quick pleasure is to watch certain images on your laptop, on your TV. And before you know it, 2, 3, 4, 5 years pass by, you're completely addicted. You can't live without it. You know, it's like, don't leave your MasterCard home without it when you leave. What is that ad called? Don't leave your card at home without it. It's kind of like this. You watch porn when you wake up, when you're brushing your teeth, when you're having breakfast, when you're driving to school, when you're in the classroom. That's what you do. Okay. Now, the only reason why he becomes addicted to porn is because he really wants to be in a relationship, but he can't. It sucks to be lonely, and he doesn't know any other way to get over his loneliness except to kind of just create this fantasy inside his head. He also wants pleasure, but he can't do it with another human being because psychologically, or physically, or temperamentally, it's not allowed for him. So he's really, really desperate to find a way to gain some pleasure in life. And the only way he can do it is porn. Before you know it, he's addicted, okay? So next time you find someone walking into a bar, make sure that your imagination is fully active. They're not going to a bar because they enjoy drinking. Be clever. People do what they do because life is complex. Life is tough. Right? Now, can you ask this question on Monday? Yeah. Any there are going to be these moments in the life of any addict or addict to be where they say to themselves, I think I'm drinking a bit too much. Something about you tells you what's happening to you. But there is this huge, and you have to go to Charles Darwin in the sense that the seed of addiction is a living organism. Any desire that lives inside you, any desire is like this living organism. And what did Charles Darwin talk about living organisms? They only have one function. They will fight to survive. Addiction to anything, okay, it's like this plant that will desperately, or a cat that meows every minute, give me some food. Okay? And they'll manipulate you in all sorts of ways. Okay? So if you have ever had any desire to satisfy yourself, gratify yourself physically, okay, and your companion isn't around, so you don't know really what to do with this like intense emotion for sex, desire for sex, well, it's a living organism, but you don't want to. pleasure yourself. So what you do is you grab the Bible off of the shelf. Place them both in front of you. The porn and the Bible. And you realize now you have two living forces. Every time you want to give yourself pleasure, the Bible comes and says, don't do it. And every time you want to like shut off the laptop and go towards the Bible, the pleasure, the imaginations, the fantasies about sex, they come full force. And realize that it's really just inside your head. What you're doing is two desires are competing. And if one desire needs to survive and be satisfied, one desire needs to be demolished completely. And you don't need a physical Jesus to be nailed and crucified on the cross. You will do it once your desire for masturbation just erupts. You will emotionally and psychologically put Jesus on the cross, and you will kill him, you will bury him, and you will make sure he doesn't resurrect. Okay? So there are going to be moments in the life of any addict or addict-to-be where an opposite desire will come forth and say, don't do it. Okay. And so out of the branch that says, drink some more, comes a tiny little branch. And that particular branch that comes out of your desire to drink some more says, you're never going to be an alcoholic. You're too good for this. It's never going to happen to you. Death will befall your neighbor, your parents, your friends, other people in other countries, but never you. So this branch is what we call denial. You will always deny that bad things are going to happen to you. You will never kind of say to yourself, maybe I'll be an addict. Maybe I'll be a loser. Maybe I'll be homeless. Maybe I'll never graduate. Maybe I'll never get pregnant. None of those things. So remember, one of the reasons why we kind of walk towards our own demise is because of this very strong component that lives inside all of us, denial. Some of us in this class have some age on us. You know why you didn't continue with your school at the age of 18 and you dropped out? You denied that you're going to get older. You denied that you're going to stand right in the midst of life and say, life is no good. You denied all of those things. And here you are. Okay. So it's going to take a long time for you to realize that you can no longer deny certain realities about yourself. And you know when that happens, right? Rarely it happens because you've come to some insights or understanding or you become wise. It's mostly because things in your life are leaving you. You're beginning to lose things. And that's devastating. And that's the other thing you need to understand. The only way any change can take place is with loss. There is something about pain that wakes you up. I mean, it's really cruel what life does to us. All right, anyone else? There are a few more steps, but we'll talk about them. No? Always, you're the savior. It's good to see all of you. Take care.